Hi, Steve Cass here, and today I want to talk to you about the hypocrisy of the self-selected morality police that we seem to have an abundance of in our society these days. I'm going to talk about a specific event that happened. I'm not going to do specifics because it's the principle I'm concerned with, and I don't want to get deflected into discussing the actual event in question because it's irrelevant to the principle. So someone does a radio interview on a controversial subject. Well, it's not controversial actually, it's a serious subject, but it's been made controversial by others, by the self-selected morality police. But in this interview, the person doesn't spout and echo the expected outrage and shock, but instead they say that no one, even the so-called victims, no one was entirely blameless. This is made far worse by the fact that the person being interviewed is a member of the same identity group as the supposed victims. Anyway, no sooner has this interview been broadcast, but there start to appear on social media outlets, certainly Twitter and Facebook, which are the two I'm most aware of, calls for the interviewee, the person being interviewed, to lose their job. A job that has nothing directly to do with the event that was the subject of all the hoo-ha. Not that it should matter whether it was or not, but it wasn't. Their job's got nothing to do with the hoo-ha that was specifically being talked about. But you only have to combine the content of the social media posts and the speed of the responses to see that all of the furore is purely emotionally driven. There's no attempt to argue the counter view via facts or rational discourse. It's simply foaming at the mouth, ideologically driven outrage. I understand that the immediacy and the format of social media encourages people into quick and short responses, but that's no excuse for people, most of whom would describe themselves with words like kind, tolerant, reasonable, to behave like judge, jury and executioner. That someone has a different point of view from you doesn't make them de facto a bad person. And breaking news, folks, it doesn't make them automatically wrong unless you want to add perfect to those list of words you'd use to describe yourself. But the thought that it's acceptable to call for someone to be deprived of their livelihood because they disagree with you isn't kind or tolerant or reasonable. In fact, it's unkind in the extreme, intolerant in the extreme, and unreasonable in the extreme. I would add arrogant in the extreme and potentially tyrannical as well. For us to move forward as a society with any consensus, the alternative being, of course, change being imposed tyrannically, we have to stop the emotionally driven, often ideologically motivated, knee-jerk responses on social media to anyone who has a differing point of view. It's childish, it's ignorant, and it's very, very dangerous. I've been Steve Cass. Thanks for listening.